So I was talking to this runner recently, and he was really struggling with his running. He said, just out of nowhere, he started feeling really heavy, really sluggish, drained of energy, and he had no idea what was going wrong. And he had taken a few weeks off from running, pulled back on his training load, and nothing was really helping. That 3 weeks later, he was just still just feeling tired, dragging, and really just unmotivated to get out there and train. And a lot of times when this concept comes up in fitness crowds, you'll kind of hear one of two schools of thoughts. The one he went with, which is pull back from training, you're probably overdoing it, maybe overreaching a little or straining yourself, and you just need to pull back and give your body some time to catch up. And the other one you'll hear about is more on the just do it, suck it up mentality. It's all about discipline, and you just got to like tell your body, no, I'm doing this thing and push through. And eventually your body will kind of wake back up. And the thing is that neither one of those schools of thought are necessarily wrong, but they have different ways of looking at the problem and when they are the right approach. And so when you push through, sometimes that's necessary because it's just you're just having a dull moment of an off day, and pushing through is the right call. But when it's the wrong call, you're just digging a deeper hole of stress for yourself. And on the other side, pulling back can sometimes be the right call because you are overstressed and your body needs a break. But if that's the wrong call and you pull back and don't need it, you're going to be decreasing your fitness level in that time off when that's not really what the problem was to begin with. So when I work with people and this comes up, and it does come up pretty frequently, it's a very human thing to kind of just have this moment where overnight you wake up and things just feel off. And especially if the words motivation are used, that they just weren't feeling it, which is very different than just not feeling like you can do it, but feeling like you're just not into it, you just don't want to do it anymore. That's usually a signal that you have an accumulation of stress that is not being dealt with. And so, where do I turn to? Well, a third option. Before I even look at the training volume, I go and look at their recovery. How have they been sleeping? Have they been eating enough? Are they managing stress outside of training well? Do they have, for instance, a bunch of stuff going on with work or family, travel, you name it, anything like that? Because the thing is that your body doesn't really know where stress is coming from, nor does your brain. And when we're training for running, we are intentionally stressing the body to create an adaptation. But if there's an outside layer of stress that's also being thrown on top of that, that can stress the body out too much. And the thing is that when you just pull back from training in that situation, it might not solve the problem if you haven't solved that underlying recovery issue. And this is something I go through pretty frequently, if I'm being honest. I used to go through it a lot when I would do Spartan weekends, where we would race 3 times in one weekend. I'd always come back from that event with low motivation, low energy. I'd usually get sick. I was so stressed, and it would take me a while to bounce back. Now that I've moved on to different formats of races, I don't really have that cycle anymore, but I have a different cycle where as I'm training and I'm increasing my volume and intensity and going through my different phases of training, I'll push through a really tough week and be really pumped and really motivated for it. But then the next week, my energy and my motivation are just gone. But I've gone through this enough and I understand the process enough to know what's going on. And almost always when I look at my training plan, there's nothing wrong with the training plan. The volume makes sense on paper, but like I said, that structure underneath has just fallen out. I'm not sleeping well. I'm not getting enough carbs and protein to support that volume, and my body just can't manage that level of stress I'm throwing at it. And so when I talk to people I work with or other runners who are kind of going through this same experience where like they've been struggling with their training and especially their motivation, we look at that underlying recovery. And if you focus on your sleep for a few weeks, if you focus on your nutrition, you'll notice you'll probably bounce back pretty quickly without having to adjust that training. If you keep pushing through, that's when you might need longer to recover. But the big thing is like, again, really understanding this structure. And I've been trying to think of a good metaphor for this. And maybe it'll work, but like, if you had a table with 4 legs, you could put a lot of volume on top of that before that table collapses, right? That training being your volume. Now, if you take one of those legs out, like, hey, we're getting poorer sleep, take a leg out, it's going to start being wobbly. You take a second leg out, we're getting poor nutrition, that whole table collapses. It doesn't matter if you put a little volume on top or a lot of training volume on top, it's going to collapse because it just doesn't have that support structure underneath it. So all that weight comes crashing down. And that's exactly what's happening with your body is that you are physically strong enough to do this training, but you don't have the support inside you from not recovering with enough sleep, enough nutrition, or enough stress management that training volume just one day collapses on you. And honestly, that is kind of one of the bigger signs too, is when this is an overnight change, like, man, I was great last week, but this week I'm really struggling and not feeling it. That's probably because it all just came crashing down overnight, literally. So the biggest takeaway from this, I'm not trying to scare people with this message. It's just something that's been on my mind lately because of the friend I was talking to. I also kind of went through a mini version of this last week with my training and prep for the half Ironman I'm doing in a few weeks because I pushed a really intense week before I started my final build. Is that we treat training very seriously. We schedule training. We treat our gear very seriously. We maintain it and take care of it. But often recovery is kind of an afterthought. Sleep gets what time is left to us. Nutrition is kind of just a what's available in the kitchen type thought. And I really just want to stress that, like, if you want to be a strong athlete and continue to grow as an athlete, recovery is just as important as training. And it should be prioritized. It should be scheduled. It should be tracked. Um, and just manage in the same way as training because they balance each other out. So when you have weeks where you know you've been stressed, you know it's been a stressful week at work, or you know you skipped a meal during the week, just flag that and pay attention to it and see how that affects you and look at ways to, again, prioritize and reinforce that support so that you can keep on going. Because no matter how much we try and either will our way through the process, just push through these hard times, push through these struggles, you're eventually going to collapse even harder. Or if you just pull back from all your training and just try to recover until you feel better, if the quality of recovery isn't good enough, you're just going to lose fitness while burning through a bunch of weeks where nothing improves.